Hello, Dale McDermott here with the CGLCC and welcome to the 2020 Digital LGBT Plus Global Business Summit. Before we get started on the session, CGLCC would like to recognise our presenting sponsor, TD Bank Group, along with all of our gold and silver sponsors and all of our sponsors for helping us to make this event happen. We would also like to recognise our translation partner, AI Media, for enabling us to deliver live caption translation in 3 languages, English, French and Spanish, and you can access those using the links below in the description box. I'd also like to draw your attention to the left-hand side of your screen to the networking and exhibit hall tabs, where over the course of the next 5 days you can connect with LGBT plus businesses, corporations and each other to help drive that power of connection. And finally, if you do like the content we are producing, please feel free to make a financial contribution using the donate link in the description box below. Thank you and enjoy your session.
Well, good morning. Excuse me, it feels like it. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bill Hooker, and I apologize for the delay in starting today, but we are thrilled to be here today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll be with us for today's program and for tomorrow's as well. Today's program is going to deal with the foundations of supplier diversity and how to build your own supplier diversity program. And we'll talk about the why it matters and who cares and what are some of the steps that you want to go through to build your own program. And we're even going to give you the top 5 steps for successfully building a supplier diversity program. I want you all to know that today's program is going to be the foundational program. Tomorrow is going to be the spend program, where we're going to talk about spend in every variety you can imagine. Plus, we're going to talk about benchmarking and metrics. We'll even throw in a tactical project implementation plan, as well as a change management plan. So again, there are 2 sessions, and I hope that you'll be with us. I'm joined today by 2 very outstanding joint venture partners that came together with me last year, a couple years ago, as a matter of fact, to talk about how do we address our customers' real burning need to have their suppliers report spend. And we recognize that probably they weren't doing it not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't know how to. So we put together our joint venture and have developed a program that I think you're really going to enjoy. So each of the joint venture partners are going to introduce themselves to you, and I want you to listen really carefully, because at the end of tomorrow's session, we're going to ask you which one of the 3 of us were actually in the circus. So you need to be listening hard to all of our presentations and our meetings, and our introductions, rather. I want you also to know that even though the Supplier Diversity Program in the United States has been around for a little bit longer, there's tremendous similarities between our programs. And we, the 3 of us, are practitioners first. And then we have some subject matter expertise that we want to share with you. But we are for sure in this to learn as much as we can from you as well. One of the things that we have grown very used to is that our business is now largely virtual. Supplier Diversity in a Box is an 8-module, 1-hour program that's done online. But one of the things missing from this is you can't be in front of an audience. So because I can't see any of you, I need to hear from you, or we need to hear from you. And fortunately, while Heather and I present today, David is going to be manning your questions. And we really encourage you to ask any questions, make any comments that you want to, and they'll be held anonymously. We're not going to attribute the question to anybody in particular. And we're also allowing some time at the end of the program for us to be able to get questions from you. So next slide. Okay. So what is Source One Innovations? My introductions. Source One Innovations is a supplier diversity and a supplier development consulting firm. We are specialists in working with large multinational companies or much smaller companies that recognize the need for a supplier diversity program. And we can help with anything from creating, enhancing, training, and coming back later on and auditing your program. My husband Mark and I live north of Philadelphia in the state of Pennsylvania, and I come to Sourcewell Innovations after 30 plus years in corporate America in procurement and supplier diversity roles. I work for multinational companies, largely in the pharmaceutical space, but also as well as other manufacturing companies, from coatings, sealings, and adhesives to medical devices. While I was at one of my employers, I actually created and led their supplier diversity program. And in the States, if you have any government contracts that are in excess of $750,000 a year, you have to have evidence of a supplier diversity program. And you have to supply what's called a subcontracting plan every year that details the amount you're going to spend with various diverse suppliers and small businesses as well, and then also prepare and propose what you're going to be spending in the following fiscal year. And I'm a proud co-founder of Supplier Diversity in a Box, which is our sponsor bringing us here today. My certifications are, yes, first and foremost, I'm an LGBT business enterprise. I'm also a disability-owned business enterprise, which is similar to the IWSCC designation that we have in Canada. I'm a certified purchasing manager, and I also am a certified executive coach. So I hate to use the words coronavirus and supplier diversity in the same context, but what I'm interested in finding out is what is the pandemic, what is this horrible pandemic created to the supply chain, and how can supplier diversity help? So what I'm going to ask you to do, your very first do now is to answer the questions and that are not going to pop up for me now, so I will just ask you those questions. The questions are, and you go on your question and just give me 2 words, one for each question. The first question is, do you have a supplier diversity program? Yes or no? And the second question is, do you have any full-time equivalents, employees that are manning the supplier diversity program? It might be 1 full-time equivalent, it may be 10, it may be a half of a 1. I'm just interested in knowing what it is that you have, and we'll get that information and respond to you a little bit later on. So what has the pandemic really created for us? Well, we know that it's created a restriction on importing goods. We know that. There are certain countries that we are not going to allow people to ship products from their country to us at this point in time. What it also has done, therefore, is created an increase for the demand for certain things. You know, anything PPE, anything ventilator, anything mask, anything that's going to be going in to those pharmaceuticals that are going to help us protect ourselves for the future of this are in short supply and are in demand. And I don't know of anybody, and if there is one person who didn't have this problem, please put it in there in the question. Did you go into stores the day after and find a very peculiar item missing from the shelves? Not only was it all paper, but it was a lot of stuff that you use in the bathroom as well. So we had some toilet paper disruption. We couldn't get it. So what this is all pointing to is that when you look at the stories behind this disruption, you find that the bodegas of the world, the small mom and pops of the world, the small businesses in general, they could find these sources of supply, not in huge quantity, mind you, but they had the resourcefulness to be able to find them. So it points out a few weaknesses in the supply chain right now. And one is the need for nimbleness and agility. And you'll find that most diverse suppliers and small businesses are just that, nimble and agile. We want us to all to think about buying locally instead of globally. We heard comments this morning, from Ms. Gardea, as well as from the Mayor Tory of Toronto, talking about how we have to think about local and how there's been a significant disruption to the supply chain. The way we're going to get through it is by working with small and diverse businesses. So we ask you to think diverse suppliers. Here's the question that I wanted you got to put out of place. Sorry, we'll pass that one up right now. So from a classical definition of supplier diversity, and again, I'm not trying to bore anybody, but when you have to present, you want to present things that are down the middle of the road. And so I don't know, I'm not taking anything for granted. But the thing that I found very striking is that this definition could easily be translated to the definition of supplier diversity for the United States. It's a proactive strategy to encourage corporations and government agencies to include more women-owned, minority-owned, Aboriginal-owned, disability-owned, and LGBT-owned businesses in the procurement networks. We have a few more, like veteran-owned businesses, which I know are part of the IWSCC certification in Canada as well. But I threw this up because I wanted everyone to know that this is very similar to what we operate under as well. But what we want to talk about today, too, is that supplier diversity is about supplier support and development. It's not only about spend. Spend is a barometer. It's a good measuring stick to see what's going on, but it's really not the true spirit of supplier diversity. So I would like to offer something up to you. How do you define the spirit of supplier diversity? Give it some thought, but the answer's in front of us already because we can't use transitions on these programs. So supplier diversity, the spirit of it, we talked about the classic business definition, but the spirit of supplier diversity is developing underserved and underrepresented communities. So while spend is important, it's what we're doing with the spend to help these communities become stronger, to become healthier, and to help our businesses grow. And we're going to have some statistics down there pretty soon that are going to talk about why it's important to have supplier diversity. So I'm going to give away some of the successful pieces that I want to talk about as far as creating a supplier diversity program. And next to each one of these top 5, we have the modules associated with supplier diversity in a box that we talk about those. But we're going to talk about top-down support. No problem. It's easier, no doubt, to be able to get your programs going and get them maintained with having your executives supporting the programs. It can be done without their support, but there is much easier roads to hoe if you do have your executives who not only support supplier diversity, but express that in their websites, in their bulletins, in their customer information. We need to make sure that we get that top-down support, if at all possible, and exercise it, articulate it. We have, it's very interesting because what we found in the States is that while the support is growing because our customers are demanding diverse spending, and how much are you spending with women-owned businesses, and how much are you spending with LGBT-owned businesses? We have now ways of demonstrating financially how supplier diversity can work for you. And David's going to be talking about that in his program tomorrow. We also need to figure out how to change people's mindsets. We have a slide further down that talks about, that this is not a part of a social welfare program. This is more than that. And how do we change their minds? Well, we do it through communication. We do it through case studies. We do it through things that you're doing in your own companies to move supplier diversity forward. We do it through vendor fairs. We do it through outreach sources. We do it through supplier development, having suppliers coming into your organizations, teaching them the power of forming strategic alliances with other companies so that they can be the size company that a larger company needs to have supply their products to them. Strategic alliances are very, very important. And as a matter of fact, you can look at the joint venture that Heather, David, and myself have created, taking 3 smaller businesses and making 1 larger one, although we're on individually owned businesses. The next is spend reporting. You can't manage what you can't measure. And if you're doing your spend reporting and you're trying to determine just how much money you're spending with diverse suppliers, I would suggest that you use those resources elsewhere. Because there's no way that you can do the type of job that a company like David's Proximo can do for you. He has the data feeds for supplier diversity because diversity status changes quickly. And so when you send him your spend information, he can come back with an enriched spend report that enables you to be able to report to your customers. If you're using your enterprise resource planning program like SAP or Oracle, again, I would tell you to spend your money elsewhere and go over to a David and have him help you. Because even though each one of those databases and enterprise resource planning programs have supplier diversity modules in them, they're static. And so when you go and set up a supplier, which is typically when this happens, and you say, yes, this supplier is a LGBT-owned business, unless you go in and change that status, if it changes, and generally they change, the system is always going to be reporting that supplier as a diverse supplier. Whereas having a qualified data analytics company do your data enrichment for you, you'll be able to rest easy that all the spend that you are being reported to as diverse is in fact diverse. We also want to have realistic goals, and we'll show you how to do that. We'll show you how to look at what you're spending right now as compared to what you could be spending. What are the categories that are the most prosperous and the most robust when it comes to supplier diversity spend, and be able to teach you how to organize your spend accordingly to be able to go out and encourage different diverse suppliers to participate, to be able to get that seat at the table that they so richly deserve. We're also going to show you about metrics. How many sourcing events are you issuing every year? How many of those sourcing events have a diverse supplier? How many of those diverse suppliers actually got business? And if they didn't get business, why didn't they get business? Then we're going to talk about benchmarking, going out to suppliers or customers or industries that you know that may not be in your industry, which is probably best, to ask them, why was their supplier diversity program so successful? What made it successful? And we're also going to talk about, and something that Heather's going to follow me and talk about a little bit more, is certified and qualified suppliers. I put the two words in there, but they are different. Certified suppliers is what over 53% of the suppliers in the United States are requesting. Certified suppliers are those that have been certified by a third-party facility, such as your women business enterprises, such as NMSDC, such as Kamsky and the like. Those are the suppliers that I would encourage you to use. And we have programs too to encourage suppliers to get certified. Heather can do that for you and show you how that gets done very simply. Qualified suppliers or someone like self-certified suppliers. We still use self-certified suppliers in the States, but that's moving away. As I mentioned, 53% of those customers out there are requiring their suppliers to be certified by a third-party certification company. So where do we get started? Now, you probably have all the different timelines, but these are the 5 or 6 that I picked up that I thought were pretty amazing. Started back in 2015 with the Pan Am Games. And the report that I got is that there was $7.3 or so million was spent with over 226 diverse businesses. Bravo, step in the right direction. Followed up by that was the SDAC, the creation of that was founded with Kamsky and the CGLCC and WEBAC, as a matter of fact. 2017, Prime Minister Trudeau publicly met with one of the ministers on the status of women. And then we got a small business minister coming in 2018. And today, Prime Minister Trudeau actually addressed the summit, followed by the premier, who actually addressed the summit, and then the mayor of Toronto, all saying positive things about diverse suppliers and how there's a room at the table, seat at the table for them. Believe me, that's golden. You always want to respect the fact that you have those leaders thinking about coming and speaking with you or to us. So why supplier diversity? Who cares about it? Why should we worry about it? Well, again, this is the only perspective that I bring directly from the States, but this statistic, as a matter of fact, was, and the attribution is missing from it, but maybe for those of you who are in procurement, you might have heard of the Hackett Group. The Hackett Group is a well-renowned procurement and supplier diversity consulting firm. And these are their statistics, not mine. But what they have demonstrated is that those companies, I would imagine the same would exist in Canada for sure, anywhere else as well. But companies that are allocating 20% of their spend, of their overall eligible spend with diverse suppliers can directly point to at least 10 to 15% of their sales being directly attributable to having a supplier diversity program. How do they know that? Because typically when an RFP comes in, or an RFX, whatever it might be, there's a section in there that talks about how much are you spending with these various diverse suppliers and small businesses. 10 to 15% is a lot of money. And presumably, if they don't have a supplier diversity program, those customers can go elsewhere or avoid you from being able to participate in the rest of the RFX event that you're participating in. For sure, those same suppliers or companies that have attributed that much money to their diverse spend, they can satisfy their customers' requirements. And most everyone these days is asking for it. They're asking for how much are you spending. David's going to talk tomorrow as well about tier 2 spend. Very important. Tier 2 spend is how we're going to move the needle. Because even though the states have had a supplier diversity program for a long time, the two groups, minorities and women business enterprises, that were first included in supplier diversity are still lagging behind. And we are spending a lot of money in diversity, but how much are we pushing it out to all the organizations? If we give our suppliers supplier diversity goals, calling tier 2, tier 3, tier 2, whatever it might be, there are suppliers that supply them goods and services so that they can supply goods and services to their customers. That's how we push it out. That's how we uplift underserved and underrepresented communities. David's also going to talk to you again tomorrow about ROI, return on investment. How efficient is your spend in your supplier diversity program? The wonderful news is that you can always generate a positive ROI, and we can show you how to do that. What we're also going to show is that supplier diversity will help you decrease cost, increase creativity. Well, sure. Small and diverse businesses have developed an ability, they have lower overhead, they've developed the ability to really hone their skills and become very, very good at what they do. And so naturally, they're going to be able to be a little bit more competitive. Those same communities that you're buying from, those same diverse suppliers, go home every night to a community. And having them be part of your supply base is only going to give you more information about what are the projects, the additional products that you might be able to sell. So you want to make sure that you do include them. We have every reason in the world. If it's not for the spirit of supplier diversity, look at it as a good business axiom as to why you want to include small and in particular diverse businesses. It's going to enhance your company image for sure. I know we've all heard of the Human Rights Campaign. Well, you might know that the Human Rights Campaign is a buyer's guide. Yeah, a buyer's guide that talks about all of the suppliers out there that have good human rights attributes towards their employees, towards their employees and to their employees and to their customers. And people these days, we're all becoming much more educated when it comes to where we need to purchase from. The internet has made it so for us. So I'm telling you, this is a sound business strategy. If you can't justify it for the economical piece or for the spirit of it, look at it from a practical, yeah, it makes sense to do this. And you can trust that diverse suppliers are always going to at least meet, if not exceed, your expectations, and we'll show you shortly about that. This was a nice transitional slide that's missing, but before that, the red with the X goes through it, a circle comes up. It's a quote. Aren't supplier diversity programs really employment equity action plans, action programs? The answer is no. In the United States, we call it affirmative action programs. Same thing. These are not affirmative action programs anymore. There's a business imperative. David's going to come in just a second to ask a couple of questions, but the other thing I want to point out is this is another graph that came from the Hackett Group. Look at this, 99.7% of the time, diverse suppliers meet or exceed their expectations. There is no reason why your companies should not be accepting and working with diverse suppliers. If they're too small to be a supplier, are they too small to be a customer? And David now, yes. David, come in and give us a chat.
I do have a few questions that have been kind of piling up here, and they were about government strategy that Karuba had asked. The U.S. has had one for a while. Canada's just really beginning, so what are good strategies for government reporting? And we also had one question about the role that ERGs can play in the supplier diversity process.
Okay, so from a government reporting standpoint, I think it depends upon what kind of request you're being made of you. In the States, they make it pretty easy. They tell you about, this is the type of reporting that we want. These are the guidelines that per the diverse category. And they will spell out exactly what they're asking for. Then you come back and justify what you can do. Most government agencies are very willing to listen to your explanations as to why you can't meet your goals, and not every time do you actually meet your goals. So the government reporting thing, I think, is going to be led by the government entity that's asking for it. And typically, they're going to want to know how much you're spending with either small or diverse businesses. And it's interesting because most diverse businesses are small businesses, but not all small businesses, and not many of them, considering that in the States anyway, 99.7% of the businesses in the United States are small businesses. But not all small businesses are by definition diverse. But I would imagine that the requirements are going to be coming forth from how much are you spending with small businesses and how much are you spending with diverse businesses. And relatively to the employee resource groups, I say bravo, because ERGs are ambassadors for these programs. Ambassadors. They serve a very, very definite purpose to be able to bring it up in their meetings, to be able to, if they have a vendor fair, to invite the supplier diversity program to be having a table right along with them. So how about that? Is that good enough for you? If not, ask again. I'd be happy to answer it again. maybe a different answer next time.
All right. We could always have offline conversations as well. So go ahead, Bill.
Is that it?
That's it for now.
Okay. So, we talk about, again, understand that what you're seeing now is a synopsis, and we're grateful that Daryl called us and invited us to be part of this. But this is a synopsis of our 8-module, 1-hour program. So you'll excuse me if I'm jumping from one main thing to the next, but we're trying to give you a flavor for what it takes to put up a supplier diversity program. And many customers are interested in knowing, well, what kind of reporting structure do you think we need to have? Where do supplier diversity programs rest? I have typically seen one of two areas. One is that they either directly report into the chief procurement officer, and sometimes, depending upon how large the corporation is, they might have a D&I, diversity and inclusion, which is a sister diversity program to supplier diversity. We didn't talk about it here, but diversity and inclusion is more your workforce diversity. And in the States, there is a need to have certain quotas about how many different types of demographics you have working for your company. And I'll tell you, for those people who are looking for those companies that have good supplier diversity programs, check out their workforce diversity programs. If those are good, typically the supplier diversity programs are getting there, if not already good. But I would suggest that the supplier diversity lead report directly to the CPO or to the VP or to whatever higher level there is, the chief compliance officer as well. Off to the right-hand side, we have a steering committee. And we're going to talk about the steering committee, and we're going to talk about the data analyst next. Because I think that what we want to do, especially if you're forming your program for the first time, you want to have a steering committee to be able to tell you where we're going and helping you with the project. They don't do the work, but they're the ones who are going to help with budgets, help you, do your acid test with regard to what do you think of this approach and how should we look at this. Steering committees don't have to be big, but they need to be there to help you forge your path forward. Data analyst is also critical. Next slide coming up here. All righty. We don't have time to go through all of these, but from a supplier diversity lead standpoint, well, the leaders of the supplier diversity program are for sure the people who are heading it up, who are leading all of the activities. They're the ones who are putting the reports together, reporting, working with diverse suppliers, maybe creating a mentor-protege program with diverse suppliers to help them, and working throughout the organization to drive supplier diversity. Supplier diversity is not difficult. What's difficult is changing people's mindsets and getting an infrastructure, which is what our goal is to give you an infrastructure to be able to build your program off of. But then following that is the data analyst. We know that the data analyst is going to be the folks or the person who is going to be compiling reports, is going to help the supplier diversity lead move the program forward. One of the things that we will talk about, and David will talk about a little bit about it tomorrow, is part of the communication piece is that you got to have a website. You got to have a website that is your mouthpiece to the world. Your suppliers are going to look at that. Your customers are going to look at that. Your prospective employees are going to look at that. So we got to have a good website that gives information relative to the program. Where are you going? How's it doing? What are the things that you're doing? What kind of commodities do you buy? And provide an onboarding portal for suppliers. David will talk more in detail about that tomorrow. But very important, having a website that is a good communication piece. The data analyst is going to be the person who's going to be helping you from an administrative standpoint. Not being an administrator necessarily, but being able to compile data, being able to work with your ERP systems to get spend reports out, to give to a data analytics company like David's to be able to enrich your spend. Data analyst, steering committee, supplier diversity lead, critical items for you to have. And here are the steering committee highlights as well. Again, the steering committee is there to keep you on track. They're there to be your coach to help you move it forward from point A to point B. And they need to be updated, and they need to be people that are cross-functional. Why is that important? Because you want to get as much ambassadorship throughout the organization that you possibly can. And getting ambassadors that are in the form of a steering committee who have a vested interest in making it work for you are the way to go, for sure. So they're going to look at the risks. They're going to look at the budget. They're going to tell you, yeah, I don't think you should want to go in this direction. Or have you thought about that direction? Remember, you're one person. Maybe you're two persons. Maybe you're a half of a person that's balancing other duties, which most of us had when we were doing supplier diversity. So the steering committee is going to help you move your program forward because it won't move it forward by itself, for sure. Okay, so now our not so shameless supplier diversity in a box advertisement. So what is supplier diversity in a box? Well, part of what I've told you, and only a fraction of it, is some of the things that you're going to have to go through. And the waters are often murky. You don't know exactly which direction to go. So we're going to help you develop your program, and we guarantee it's going to be at a fraction of the cost and the time to you. You're going to have 3 experienced supplier diversity professionals who have over 50 years of experience helping you move this forward. And we all work so well together. We all have complementary businesses, and customers seem to like what we do. Sorry, shameless. So it's online training, and it's delivered in 8 one-hour modules. We go to your schedule. These are not 8 1-weeks in consecutive programs, because what will happen between the first module and the second module is that you'll be collecting spend data to give to David, who will then go through and enrich it. And the enrichment process takes 2 or 3 weeks to get it done. And then when the report comes through, then he'll come back and address you then. And we're going to be there for you for at least a year's time, because the part of the program is that we will make ourselves available, not to replace a consultant-led, which I can also do for you, but a consultant-led, effort. We will help you move forward from A to B. David's going to be hosting a certain number of things for you for a period of a year's time. So he'll be there too. And Heather as well, helping out with all of these certification issues, critical issues for us that she'll talk about in just a second. And so what does it give?
I'm just going to, one quick interjection, Bill. We've been extended to 4:10 since we started at 3:10. But just to give you that note, and also give you a time check, we're at 3:47 Eastern.
Thank you so much. And I have a few more slides, then Heather's going to take over. So what we want to do is to talk to you too about what supplier diversity is and isn't, and what it is and what it isn't. We know that it's not an affirmative action program. We know it's not just a feel-good program. We know that it's not a program to make people feel good. It's a program that's going to help drive business, to help uplift underserved and underrepresented communities. And by doing that, those things together, you'll find you'll have increased business, decreased cost, and increased creativity. I can't guarantee that, but that's what we have been finding. So we're going to talk about compliance versus market-driven modules. In the past, the program in the United States started in the mid-1950s, and that was largely a government type of compliance issue. So as I mentioned to you, the government has requirements that anything over $750,000, $1.5 million if you're in the construction industry, but $750,000 if it's non-construction, you have to have a supplier diversity program. That's a compliance-driven model. But what we're finding over the last decade is that the market, our customers, our private sector customers are coming to us and saying, hey, how much are you spending with women-owned businesses, with LGBT-owned businesses, and the like? So we've moved, and even the government now is beginning to recognize that there's a need to become more competitive relative to what they're asking for from a spend standpoint, as well as what kind of certifications they're looking for. And as I mentioned to you, they're moving slowly but surely to having third-party certifications only. But for the government, that's going to take quite a while. But then the market-driven is market-driven. So people now are really having a great reason for the upsurge in supplier diversity. Their customers are asking for something that they don't have, and they're scrambling to find it. We'll talk again in more detail about the 5 common steps. And we'll also talk to you about Tier 1 and Tier 2 spend. They're different. It's spend, but it's different, and it's important. Tier 2 can go from Tier 2 all the way down to Tier 22. But Tier 2 spend is something that you'll hear more about tomorrow. And of course, change management is something that is how we're building ambassadors, how we're getting people's emotions to change, how we're getting behaviors to change, and how we're moving our programs forward. Technology. We're finding that some companies who are trying to manage their supplier diversity programs using Excel spreadsheets, that's not a pro tip. You don't want to do that. It doesn't make any sense because the cost for having it enhanced is worth its weight in gold, considering that you're going to have real good information rather than information that could be wrong. And guarantee you, there are big companies out there who are responding to supplier diversity enhancement come talk to me or come talk to any of us about that before you would choose one of them. Because, yeah. Anyway, and we also have a hosted diverse supplier onboarding portal that David will talk with you more about. A place where your suppliers can go and learn about your company, learn about the commodities that you're buying, and also be able to register and enroll their interest in working with your company. All of David's stuff is secured, and it's online. It's in the cloud and available for you when needed. And also, the other thing that I could never have forgotten, as you continue to build your database, and as David's databases increase, you'll have a database to be able to go in there and search for diverse suppliers. Instead of having to go to your NMSDC or your WEBEC and ask for their listing of members who are also suppliers to you potentially, and realizing that when you get the information, they haven't told you what the contact name was. You don't know what they supply. You just know that they're a customer XYZ. This database is going to give you some meaningful insights, guaranteed. And for your suppliers, right? So Heather has a neat program that she runs with suppliers to teach them why it's important for them to provide spend information to you, who is their customer. So it's important, and by the time she gets done with them, they're believers, and they're all excited about it. What we're going to do is we're going to help you be able to increase your reportable spend to diversify. You're going to be able to increase your diverse spend to begin with, and you'll be surprised how much diverse spend you may have spent already, or that we can identify for you as potential areas. There are those areas that are just particularly ripe with diversity opportunities. And one of the things that we do include in Supplier Diversity in a Box is that after you get your enriched spend back from David and he's reviewed it all with you, we're going to give you the opportunity to pick one of your suppliers who you suspect could be a diverse supplier, but hasn't yet certified. And we're going to certify them for you. How about that? We're going to give you one supplier free certification for them to help them understand that it's really pretty easy to get certified, just a lot of legwork that Heather's excellent at doing, but that it's something that they've got to do. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's just go do it. Okay. And then my final slide is this, the program implementation. It's what I call the ACE model. We have 4 distinct areas that we work on. Adoption, which is getting your support, figuring out how to get your support, and then building on that support. Your information, data, website, change management plans, vendor fairs, outreach. We're going to look at how we get that information, bring it together to be a really very interesting opportunity. Support. Again, we're going to take all those things and we're going to drive it down. We're going to look at how we can garnish that support and continue building it, not only with our stakeholders, but with our executives. And some companies are interested in going global with that. We have opportunities with relationships that we have to help us understand better the nuances of going to another country. Because we understand that the U.S. is just one feature. The U.S. is the U.S. But we know that there's lots more for us to learn, and we are learning a lot as we go along. And then the execution. How do we get the program executed? How do we get you to go live? So it's a combination of all these things that we do interchangeably that come up with a great program. So I'll be back with you tomorrow. And if you have any questions, just send them along and we'll answer them shortly. But I'm going to turn the slides over now to Heather. Thanks, Heather. Thank you, everybody. It's so appreciated. Sorry that I got us off to a late start.
No problem. I actually am not so sure how to do the slides, but we'll figure this out. Yeah, you just want to move it forward because only 3 slides.
You want me to move it for you?
Yeah, that's perfect. So I'm Heather Cox. Yeah, I'll tell you when. I'm Heather Cox. I am president and co-founder of Certify My Company and Diversity Masterminds. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Supplier Diversity in a Box, based in Henderson, Nevada, right outside of Las Vegas. And Just to super impress you, my degrees are in Spanish and French. So there's that. My companies are certified as women-owned as well as disability-owned. And the secret is I was the one in the circus. So that's all right. There's no other way for them to figure that out. So my part of the box is to talk about certification and the diverse suppliers, how to interact with your suppliers, how to talk to your suppliers, and how to find those suppliers. And to Bill's point, the supplier diversity components are more than just buying goods and services from your suppliers. It's also helping them grow, helping them flourish as suppliers, making them better suppliers, not just for you, but for themselves as well. So the different categories that we typically work with are women-owned. And I'm sorry, I think you probably all know this already, but I'm just going to throw it out there. And feel free to throw any questions you have about the certification process or why certification is so important. But there's the women-owned, and they all require the same eligibility. It's the company must be 51% owned, operated, and controlled by whatever demographic you're certifying. So the ownership part is pretty straightforward, and people don't usually get too hung up on that part of it because either you're 51% owned or not. The operation and the control is where most companies run into snags because they don't understand what that means to the certifying bodies. And so the reason that's so important, especially to the corporations and the government entities out there, is because these third-party organizations take the responsibility of vetting those companies for you, right? Like CGLCC, to say this company is truly owned, operated, and controlled by an LGBT person or persons, or the other organization, the IWSCC, by a disability person or people. So that's why the certifying bodies are so crucial to the success of any supplier diversity program, because as Bill said earlier, we can't see the impact of our programs if we don't know who we're really working with. So some people will say, they'll say, look, well, I'll just tell them that I'm women-owned. Well, we could tell you whatever we want. It's those third-party certifications that will solidify and concrete and take a supplier diversity program to the next level, from kind of fledgling or blossoming program up to that real world-class program that I think most companies are somewhat striving for. So Bill, you want to do the next one? So tell me, I know I asked some of you a little bit earlier, but tell me in the chat box, or tell us in the chat box, why supplier diversity is so important to your company. And if you're not sure if it is important to your company, why is it so important to you? Why is it so important to utilize and to interact with companies that are owned by women, minorities, LGBT, disability individuals? Why is it so important to the company? And who is your supplier diversity program important to? So one of the things that we talk about quite often when we talk about the power of supplier diversity is the different demographics have different consumer powers. And I know that we don't have a ton of information, and we've seen a lot of success with the programs in the States, and we really know that it can be super powerful in Canada as well, which is why we need your help to all work together to really change the landscape. So if we get something wrong here, we apologize. And we've done a lot of research to try to get everything right, but we also appreciate your grace and your ability to help educate us if we did make some hiccups or get a little bit of the information slightly off. So when you talk about the consumer power of different demographics, if you think about if the minority buying power in Canada is $3 trillion, if you were a sales rep selling for the $3 trillion account, it'd probably be pretty important to you. So that's how we look at it. Who is your supplier diversity program so important to? Do you have clients that think it's important? Because then if it's a value to your client companies, then it's a value to you, right? Do any of your contracts require that diversity spend? Is human health important to you? There are statistics after statistics about how the economics of communities really drive human health even more than the medical component of human health. So if we can elevate all these different demographics through the economics of business development and businesses and entrepreneurship, that's when we really see healthier communities. And then is corporate social responsibility important to you? Is it important to your company? These are all the pieces that are so important to ask. And to Bill's point, we drive it up to the C-suite, to the highest level, whoever in that company is, because these are also components that are important to them. A lot of times it's because it's important to the shareholders, since we see that the ROI is so much stronger for companies that have robust supplier diversity programs. Okay, Bill, we'll go to that last slide. I'm hurrying up because I know we want to take some Q&A here. And as I said, you can only measure what you can count. So we only know if a program is impactful, is helpful, is beneficial, if we know who we're working with. And I know Trung just put that in the chat box also, that he's so grateful that these organizations vet for him, because he can then trust that who's really who they say they are. And it can help maximize your revenues and your employee bases. And it's like a three-legged stool. When we're looking at that three-legged stool, we want to make sure we're diversifying our employees. We know that it's pretty much it's ingrained in most of our brains, the way we run our businesses. And we know we have to have a diverse consumer base in order to get the most revenues. And that third leg of that three-legged stool is our suppliers. And that's when you're going to see those maximum results, those maximum revenues, is when all three of those pieces are maximized. And it says approximately 70 cents of every dollar spent with a diverse firm goes back to that demographic, which is where we get that strong economies, right? Where we get how we're elevating all these different companies. And as Bill said, we do work with suppliers. So Diversity Masterminds is another one of our companies. And we really work with the suppliers because, as we said, we want to make sure you're not just buying goods and services, but you're supporting the businesses. And by them understanding what it looks like, how to interact with you, how to be a better supplier to you, you will get better results. Someone asked earlier if any corporations or government entities change up the RFP process for small and diverse businesses. Well, the expectation is that these small, diverse businesses will elevate themselves, that they will level up, and they will compete on the same level as anybody else. And so it's important, and we teach that it's not just, your certification is a great introduction, right? If you've been knocking on a door to get into a corporation and work with somebody and the door's just not being answered, or they're like, oh, hey, and then they close the door on you, that supplier diversity can be a great side door entrance to get in there. But once you're in the door, you need to show up, and you need to be just as competitive as everybody else that's competing. And then once you're past that competing part, and they're like, wow, these 2 or 3 suppliers are amazing. How am I ever going to choose? Oh, well, this one's also certified, right? That's where it makes the difference. But yes, they are expected to show up and to compete on the same level as any other company that wants your business. And they should. You only want the best suppliers, and we only want the best suppliers for you. So that's why having these third-party organizations, as well as helping to support and increase the capacity of these other businesses, is such a great benchmarking tool for all the corporations that are involved in supplier diversity. So we have some great chats going on here. I don't know, David, if you want to read out some of them.
I can, yes. And I think we answered one of the questions you answered via chat yourself. But some of the other ones that are coming in here were really about sustainable growth. Finding, I kind of take this last question that came in from Trung here. I'm reading the conversation, actually. Utilizing the agencies and the organizations to identify those diverse suppliers that may fit your needs. So if we can take a couple of minutes, we could probably talk about that. Using the agencies as really like a sourcing mechanism.
Right. Yeah, you can definitely use agencies as sourcing mechanisms. If you're looking for a specific supplier that can do have a good or service, then then your certifying bodies, they have access to those suppliers, and they can help make those introductions. Also, Philip asked a really important question. Right. And most of you probably noticed that David, Bill, and I, all of our companies have multiple certifications. We're not just a single certification. So why did we do that? Why did we go through the bother of getting multiple certifications? Why do I consult to most of my clients if they fit into any other categories to get certified? Well, first of all, when the conferences go in person again, and I am full faith that we are going back in person 2021, I believe in it. And And as the secret says, if you visualize it, it will happen, right? So we're going to visualize, we're all going in person again. You get multiple access to different people within an organization. Plus, for some companies, different certifying organizations might help them achieve their goals in different ways. So, for example, with my WeBank certification, I can take advantage of all the WeBank has to offer. And with my Disability In certification, I can take advantage of everything Disability In has to offer. And they're not always exactly the same. And some of their offerings, some of their executive leadership, their mentorship programs work differently. And so I could take advantage of which one I think is going to fit better for me and for my company, based on either the stage that I'm in, the size of my company, my ability to travel and leave my family. I have 5 little kids at home. I can't always just take off and run away. So different organizations offer different platforms of learning and growth. And so by having those multiple certifications, you get multiple times interactions to meet with these supplier diversity managers and corporations. And you also get access to different company development offerings. Additionally, let's say, for example, I'm working with a company and I'm a fantastic supplier to them, obviously. And then they say, well, we've really fulfilled our women-owned spend. Oh, but we can report her disability spend. So that way it's beneficial for my clients as well, that I have multiple certifications they can utilize me for their reporting as well. Did I miss anything, Philip?
We obviously can't hear Philip, but I'm going to guess he's going to agree with that. And we are at 4:07, so we've got 3 minutes 3 minutes left. We can see if any other last questions come in. But as a reminder, we're all back, same 3 of us, to finish part 2 of this session at 2:15 Eastern tomorrow. And we can pick up with any other questions there. And Heather put an email address for us in here, so if you email that, it'll come to all of us, and we could always have offline discussions as well. Just reading any last minute questions does not list. Heather's put that in there again. So I think we can just say at this point, thank you to everybody. And we hopefully will see you again tomorrow when we rejoin you. And was there somebody from CGLCC?
Yeah.
Close it out.
There we go. Close it out.